The cult of Unitology has always been a subject of deep fascination in the world of Dead Space for fans and for myself. Who began the religion? How did the followers cannibalize the beliefs and turn something meant to unite all under the marker's mantle into a hostile and extreme faction? Well, that's what we will be delving into. So sit back, relax, and let's go through the anatomy of the religious cult of Unitology within the dark and twisted planes of existence that is the Dead Space universe. In the 23rd century, a geophysicist named Michael Altman had begun to investigate into the recent gravitational and electromagnetic abnormal readings. What he found, however, would disturb him to his core, a video log. Once restored, the implications it had presented were indeed troubling to him and of Dredger Corp. Michael would meet with a man known as Hammond in a bar, where he would tell him of the company's interest within the Gulf of Mexico, Shishalub. Once the two departed, Hammond would end his own life after being chased down a nearby alley, much to the men's surprise. Michael, after some investigations, would listen to the townsfolk about the Devil's Tale with his girlfriend Ada, explaining that the folklore had begun to change all of a sudden, which doesn't happen normally. It would normally take generations and retellings of the story for that to happen, like Chinese whispers, but this is happening within days. Confused about what to do next, Michael would contact an organization that would be able to scientifically assess what is happening. However, this would tip off Markov, who had spearheaded the investigation of the abnormal readings surrounding the Gulf. He would intercept the science committee and strong arms Altman into the operation with Dredger Corp, taking Ada along for the ride for some much needed insurance that Michael will comply. Michael would take several trips down into the depths of the Gulf to locate the source of these readings, and all the while the teams would fall prey to the Black Marker's apparitions, making them believe their family members are outside of the sub. Michael would have no choice but to subdue the teams as best as he could. Thanks to his efforts, they would recover the Black Marker. However, things would go from bad to worse, as the workers had begun to worship the monolith. After seeing the apparitions for themselves, the scientists would begin to study the symbols on the skin of the marker, with others becoming obsessed with the symbols, writing them all down with drawings of the obelisk. Michael would escape the facility with his girlfriend, who would attempt to get the truth out about what they had found down there. However, after a press conference in Washington, he would be apprehended by cracks and would be taken back to the facility where he would be tortured, and Ada would eventually perish to unknown causes according to cracks. She died on her own terms. However, Markov would reveal later, eventually, thanks to a lone scientist, the facility would come under attack from a necromorph outbreak, stripping the workers and scientists of their individual forms, turning them into the grotesque and horrific creatures hell-bent on adding more to their ranks. Michael, using his ingenuity, would escape the outbreak, but would return to cease the spread of infection. He would meet a survivor who would tell him of the marker's message. Altman, seeing the records on the nearby computer, and after receiving a vision from the marker, would work out it wants them to make more markers. This would push Altman over the edge, and he would sink the station to stop the outbreak. However, he would be knocked out by Harmon, who in turn delivers him to Markov, who sets Altman up to be the martyr of the new order, Unitology. There he would be savagely killed by cracks, who had been killed and resurrected as a necromorph brute. The new truth would spread to the public that Michael had been blessed with the touch of the marker, that he was to be their prophet, but the government had assassinated him to keep him silent about the marker. Over the years, turning into generations, the public would enter the welcoming arms of Unitology like lambs to the slaughter, and the religion would become the largest and only one leading into the 24th century. The church's propaganda is one of a welcoming arm, conveying a positive and appealing message to the public, telling them when the time is right, all that are worthy will become one. Through the rest of the 24th century, people's faith in other religions had become shaky, and leading into the 25th, most would join out of poor mental health due to various growing issues and crises. Unitologists would also show great concern over environmental planet-cracking operations, explaining how ripping apart random planets will ultimately damage the overall harmony of the galaxy. Unitologists believe that the markers are a sign that a god is very much present in the universe, that the markers are definitive proof that the Lord is somewhere out there. Others would believe that when they die, their spirits will live on, returning to the gods that had brought them into existence, and the non-believers shall be cast aside and be forsaken. The religion in their texts have a similar approach to Christianity when talking about the apocalypse in their talks about the end of days. The church believes that preserving the dead will ensure that they will stay worthy to their gods and not become corrupt. The religion's steps to ensure that all Unitologists will remain pure includes morgues throughout all of their establishments, such as the several churches scattered across the galaxy and ships specifically designed to preserve the dead. The unifying force that Unitologists often speak about is the event known as convergence, which will elevate all who are worthy into a single plane of existence, all becoming one entity through unity. For the non-believers, however, Unitology believes it is their sacred duty to ensure that all become worthy, and they do this by infecting them with the necrotic tissue. The structure of the church is similar to other religions in the fact that there are ranks in the hierarchy of Unitology. In the beginning, a person would be a simple believer. After a few years of studying, they would become a Unitologist scholar. However, there are more ranks within the religion. Depending on the amount of money one would donate to the church, they would become the following: the vested being the next level up, the overseer being the higher level, that would normally be an investor, someone who is well versed in other enterprises, such as the government or the CEC. An overseer would be someone who could bring something more valuable than money to the church, someone who could bring real change to other organizations to suit the church's needs, with that being the investment. The next level up would be a paragon, someone who is highly versed in the scriptures of Unitology, and someone who manages the believers and the vested operations. The highest level, allegedly, is the enigma status, someone who manages the paragons and the overseers. However, their identity would most likely be erased to protect their identity, perhaps being the descendants of the founders. However, there are other ways the church raises funds for their practices and other operations, with those being their merchandise with books, figurines, and other items. The books would include Teachings of Unitology, attributed to Michael Altman. Tome of Unitology. Death is only the beginning. Eternal life. Hymn book. The other merchandise would include Mark Replica 150C, the Tome of Unitology 50C, Enigma Statue 1000C, Enigma Mask 5000C, Marker Necklace. Unitologists will often preach to others, possibly people that are neutral to their own religion, and would not waste their breath on the non-believers. However, there have been cases of Unitologists within the CEC defending their beliefs about the imminent unity at the end of days. There are a minority of believers who believed that the human race was to have been created by aliens, and that once they die, their spirits return to them as previously spoken about. They also would not be afraid to show off their merchandise they had bought from the church's many shops to present to others their dedication of their beliefs. They would also spread their gospel by reading the literature of Unitology to the public. The government would also attempt to create a law against this on Titan Station. However, the Unitologists would call this oppression, and the backlash would force them to back down from the new law. Possibly the overseer could have taken the law down due to his ties to the cult. Within the churches, people would be presented to the several rites of passage they would have to complete in order to join and prosper within the order. These would include soul cleansing. Not much is known about the soul cleansing, other than it being an initiation ceremony for newcomers, and that the procedure is very painful and disorientating, with people's screams being heard echoing down the nearby halls. Indoctrination. Unitologists once past the soul cleansing would often be indoctrinated into the order for further compliance. It is publicly thought that the church brainwashes their believers into their order, allowing the higher ranks to use them for monetary gain. It is also noted that the strong-willed individuals would be turned away, as they would be highly resistant to the order. Conflict is the enemy of unity after all. After the step is successful, the believer would be allowed to proceed further into the church. Prayer. Unitologists will often pray to their gods, mostly in shared environments, so that their praise may intertwine together, reaching their gods further. This is a practice that is led and recommended by the high-ranking clergy. Meditation. Like many religions, meditation is a practice that many Unitologists partake in. Unitologists can be commonly seen to cross their arms and meditate, attempting to emulate an appearance akin to the marker's form. Candles, mats, and marker replicas would also be used for this practice, as to surround the believer with inspiration and to make them feel whole. Perhaps the Unitologists thought that if they surrounded themselves with these objects while meditating, they would either impress the gods or be presented with a vision, or be visited by an apparition from their past riddled with the same cryptic messages the marker has been known to produce. Death ritual. Being the most important step for Unitology, the death rituals are a funeral for loved ones, friends, colleagues, or all of the above. Instead of mourning the loss, Unitology encourages their followers to celebrate someone's death as they descend into the several morgues across human space. Another way of being pure is to live a selfless life, similar to Christianity telling their followers that if they do as the commandments tell them, they will be allowed into the pearly gates of heaven. However, if even one was to be broken, you would be forsaken to the fiery pits of hell. Those who live with these rules would believe that once death overtakes them, that they will be reborn with an ascended spiritual and physical prowess. Unitology would evolve over the generations, with Markov's belief that the necromorphs were not divine but were definitive proof that the marker can produce eternal life given the right research. This would eventually be twisted into the minority's interpretation of the necromorphs. Once they connect the marker with the necromorphs, the few Unitologists would think that the worthy would be reborn into the next stage of human evolution, and the unworthy would be forsaken and replaced by the new order, one of blood and flesh. This would present a very disturbing conclusion to those who had made the connection, and the extreme side of Unitology would take it upon themselves to ensure the marker's plan would succeed by spreading the terror and infection to the several stations that hold a marker nearby. Dr. Mercer, Dana, and Danik would be the minority in the main series, with Mercer creating the Hunter Necromorph in the most disturbing way possible. Dana outdoing this by unleashing the terror the marker installs in a society, and Danik leading a Unitologist insurrection force to destroy the government. Unitologists in the Aegis 7 colony would end their lives by shooting themselves in order to give the marker new bodies to reanimate and reconstruct into necromorphs. However, this would not be the first time Unitologists would end their own lives to become the necromorphs, as this is a reoccurring theme throughout the series, with suicide being an extreme action. But considering how the Order celebrates death, it could be seen to be an acceptable action to take within the Order, rather than it being something to try and prevent. After the events of Dead Space 2, the extreme minority would begin to swing into a majority, with an information war sparking between EarthGov and the Church of Unitology, which would turn into an insurrection that would be known as the Circle, led by a high-ranking Unitologist, Danik, who would order marker sites to be destroyed and to recover any details that lead Unitology closer to the source of the markers, as everything would be created by at least something in the universe. The religion within Dead Space 3 is a shell of its former self, inciting violence towards others, especially the non-believers, rather than attempting to negotiate with their words rather than their actions. The Legion of Unitology would soon descend upon Tal Volantis, and thanks to the actions of their leader, Danik would resume convergence, causing the event to awaken the cluster of Brethren moons. Judging by the reaction of the Unitologist soldiers in the aftermath of Dead Space 3, Unitologists had no clue as to what the other side of convergence might look like, despite the overall design of the churches across the galaxy. The Legion would begin to change at this point, at the point of awakening the moons, with them being led by one that goes by the name of the Prophet, a man that seems part human, part apparition. He would change the Order to one that mimics the necromorphs, even worshipping their gruesome transformation, shedding their weapons and using primitive shivs, and they would also disfigure their individual features or anything that makes them unique, as to go with the old saying, to become one with the marker, you must lose your individuality. The extremist beliefs would eventually allow the necromorphs, marker, and Brethren moons into successfully fooling the Unitologists into dooming their own species into becoming one with the markers, which would bring them to the brink of extinction. It is a pretty sad case that an organization that was designed to be nothing more than a cash grab would pull so many into the Order, promising them salvation from the apocalypse, only for their unity to bring about the end of days, dooming them and all species in the universe. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, then give the video a like rating. Tell me what you thought in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you to all of my channel members for your extra support, which I greatly admire, And if you would like to gain extra benefits or exclusive rewards, then hit the join button now to see the 2 available tiers and see what takes your fancy. Sign up to join the British Alliance today by hitting the subscribe button and ringing in the notification bell to receive all updates to the channel. And I will see all of you among the cosmos, and be sure to have a good one.